The ice breaks in Cedar Hollow the same way it always does, slowly, then all at once. Cole Dempsey had been fishing Hargrove Mill Pond every March for 30 years. He knew the sounds of Thaw, the low crack that runs beneath the surface, before the ice gives, the hiss of meltwater pressing through. He knew what the pond looked like when it was done being winter. He did not know what a woman looked like, floating in the shallows. She was face down, coat dark, hair loose. Cole said later that his first thought, before he understood what he was seeing, was that something beautiful had come to rest there. He didn't know why he thought that. He wasn't sure he'd ever forgive himself for it. I got the call 3 days later. Sheriff Hadley knew I'd been sitting in Cedar Hollow with no cases and too much coffee. And he had learned that I had the instinct for things that didn't fit. This one didn't fit at all. Because when the lab ran her fingerprints, standard procedure, took 48 hours. The result that came back made the technician run it a second time. Her name, according to the database, was Nora Jean Ashby, Cedar Hollow resident, born 1952, married church piano player, deceased, officially, legally, irrevocably, September 14, 1989. She had burned to death in a house fire 34 years ago. And yet, I stood at the edge of that mill pond in the early morning light, the last of the ice shifting beneath the surface, and I thought, I know this feeling. Standing at water's edge while something old and hidden rises up. I don't know where I know it from. The memory is just a sensation. Cold air, someone leaving or arriving, I can't tell. Something surfacing. But we're not there yet. First, Nora Ashby. Who she was, or who she became, or who was lying in her place for 34 years. That's what we're here to find out. Let's go back to Cedar Hollow as it was. 1989 was the year the Methodist Church got its new roof. The year Dempsey's Hardware finally hired a second employee, and the year that Nora Ashby, by all available accounts, ceased to exist. She had lived quietly. That was the word people used when I asked. Quietly. Like it was a compliment and also a warning. She'd grown up in Halkett County, 50 miles east, and married Garrison Ashby at 23. He was 10 years older, ran the hardware store his father had built, and was, by most descriptions, a steady man, dependable, fixed things when they broke, said what he meant and meant what he said. Llewellyn Briggs, who ran the alterations shop next door to Dempsey's Hardware for 40 years, put it a little differently. He had a way of being right, she said, always, even when he wasn't. That kind of man. You learn to be very small around him, or you find yourself fighting all the time. And Nora wasn't a fighter. What Nora was a piano player. Every Sunday, 10 a.m. Baptist First Church, she played hymns mostly, but Edna Prescott, who served coffee at the diner and sat 3 rows back every week for years, said Nora had a habit of slipping in something unexpected near the end of the service. Something minor, key, something that felt, Edna said, like a question no one had asked out loud. I'd be walking home after, Edna told me, and I'd still hear it, whatever she'd played. I never knew the name of it. I've thought about that a lot. a woman who speaks most clearly when no one is looking directly at her. The morning of September 14th, 1989, Garrison Ashby left for the store at 6:45, as he did every weekday. Nora was in the kitchen. He said she seemed fine. He said she seemed like herself. At 11:17 a.m., a neighbor on Crabtree Road called the fire department. By the time they arrived, the house was fully involved. They found remains in the kitchen. The fire marshal ruled it accidental, a gas leak, an old stove. The remains were too compromised for traditional identification methods, but dental records on file with Dr. Caswell confirmed a match. Nora Ashby was dead. Garrison buried her, sold the house to a developer 18 months later, remarried in 1992. His second wife, Vera, was a school teacher from Denton County, quiet and kind. By all accounts, they were happy. He died in 2018, heart failure. Vera still lives in the house on Miller Creek Road. Now here is the thing I keep returning to. When we process the woman from the Mill Pond, our Jane Doe, our fingerprint match, our impossible problem, she had nothing on her. No identification, no phone, no keys, no wallet, no jewelry. Nothing except, in her left hand, curled so tightly that the medical examiner had to gently work each finger loose, a small brass key. Ornate handle, the kind made for one specific thing, a music box. It was worn smooth at the bow, the part you grip, in the way that something gets when hands have worried it for years. Decades. Maybe. It was not new. It had been held, repeatedly, by someone who needed to hold something. There was no music box anywhere near the mill pond. There was no music box found in her shelter when we located it. There was no music box anywhere that I could find. She had the key to something she never let anyone see. I put it in an evidence bag and carried it with me for the rest of this case. I'm not sure I can explain why. Some objects insist on being close to the investigation. Here's what I can tell you about the last 3 days of her life, or the last 3 days anyone saw her. And here's what I genuinely don't know. I'll be honest about the difference. She was at Marta's grocery on a Tuesday morning, the week of the Thaw. Marta Pelletier had owned the place for 30 years and remembered her because of the cinnamon. People buy coffee and bread, Marta said, but the cinnamon, that was specific. That was someone who knew what they wanted in the morning, someone with a habit. She paid in cash, exact change. Said, "Thank you, sweetheart." When Marta handed her the bag, smiled, walked out. No car in the lot. Marta watched her go. You do. When a customer is slightly unusual, and she walked east toward the mill road, not hurrying. Like someone with all the time in the world, or someone who had stopped thinking about time the way most people do. Where she slept, I can't tell you with certainty, but we found a place. The old Hargrove textile building sits about 1.5 miles past the mill pond, back in the birch trees, off a road that's more memory than pavement now. The county condemned it in 2004 and forgot about it. The roof holds in 2/3 of it. The rest has gone back to birds. In the northeast corner, on the 2nd floor, someone had made a home. Not a rough shelter, a home. A sleeping roll in good repair, folded military neat. a wooden crate doing service as a table. On the crate, a tin camping mug, a candle burned to its last inch, a library paperback with a bookmark still in it. She'd been on page 211 of a novel called The Long Passage. I read the back cover. It was a story about a woman who walks away from her life and makes it to the other side. She never finished it. On a small shelf, 3 boards nailed to the studs, she'd arranged 17 paperback novels, spines out, alphabetically by author. No titles written anywhere. No name. Nothing that said, "This is mine, this is me, I was here." Except the books themselves, which said all of that in their own way. I've tried to reconstruct what happened in those final days, and I keep arriving at the same wall. Someone knew she was here, or she knew someone was coming. Those are not the same thing, and the difference is everything. She went to Marta's grocery on a Tuesday. She was found in the mill pond on a Friday. Sometime in those 3 days. A Wednesday. Probably, based on the medical examiner's estimate, she died in or near that water. The cause of death: blunt force trauma. Consistent with a fall. Consistent, also, with something else. The examiner was careful with his language. I cannot rule out either possibility: a fall or not a fall, an accident or not an accident. She was found face down in shallow water, and the ice had held her there for somewhere between 2 and 4 days. I stood at that pond a long time, looking at the water. Cedar Hollow was still pulling itself out of winter. The birches were bare. The light had that thin, early spring quality, present but not warm yet, like a promise someone hasn't quite kept. I couldn't stop thinking about the grocery store, the cinnamon, the "thank you, sweetheart," someone who still said thank you. Sweetheart, after everything, after whatever had happened between 1989 and now, whatever she had survived or become. She was still the kind of person who thanked the cashier. I want to stop here for a moment, because if you're still with me, good, you should be. The question that was following me home at night was this: if this woman had been living a hidden life for 34 years, why come back to Cedar Hollow at all? Not just once, but twice a year, every year, for at least the last 6 years that we can document. March and October, like clockwork, like an obligation. What was she coming back for? Stay with me. We're getting there. I talked to everyone who'd had any contact with a woman matching her description. Most of them hadn't noticed her. That, I was starting to understand, was deliberate. She had cultivated invisibility the way some people cultivate charm, as a survival skill, as a way of moving through spaces without leaving a mark. The Cedar Hollow Sheriff's Office ran her fingerprints through every database available. The Nora Ashby match kept coming back. No other hits. I talked to Vera Ashby on a Thursday afternoon. She was 73, warm and careful, the kind of woman who offers tea before she answers questions. She'd known Garrison loved Nora, she said, in his way. She'd made peace with the past being what it was. When I asked about the dental records, she got quiet. Garrison handled all of that, she said. He was very thorough about such things. I thought about Dr. Caswell, who had confirmed the dental match in 1989, Dr. Caswell retired in 1996 and died in 2009. His records had passed through 2 other practices since then and were largely lost in a move. And then there was Mr. Aldous. He lives on Pembroke Lane, in the house with the white porch and the wind chimes that never stop. He has, in the years I've known him as a fixture of Cedar Hollow, never once failed to notice something that everyone else missed. He sees, and he stores, and he rarely volunteers. You have to ask him the right question. I knocked on his door on a Friday morning. He answered before I'd finished knocking. "The woman from the pond," he said. "You know about her?" I said. "I know she came to Dempsey's hardware twice a year," he said. "March and October. Always a Tuesday. Always cash. Always asked about the road up to the Hargrove place." He paused, adjusted his glasses. I assumed she was a birder. 6 years at minimum he'd seen her, possibly longer. He wasn't certain when he'd first noticed. She bought small things, nails, a hinge, once a tin of wood stain, things a person needs to maintain a shelter, things that, individually, meant nothing. She never made eye contact. She was polite. She said thank you. I didn't think it was strange, Mr. Aldous said, because she didn't want me to think it was strange, and she was very good at that. This is what I've learned. In the work I do, the most important witnesses are usually the ones who don't know they are. Mr. Aldous had 6 years of data on a woman who didn't officially exist, and it had never once occurred to him that this was unusual, because she had specifically, carefully, professionally made sure it wouldn't. Think about how long you'd have to practice that. I went back to the Hargrove Building that afternoon and looked at the shelf of paperbacks more carefully. 17 novels, all well-read, all different genres. A mystery, 2 literary novels, a western, a history of the First World War. Whoever she was, she read widely. She read whatever she could find, and then I noticed the spines were organized, alphabetically, meticulously. In a building where everything else about her shelter was functional and minimal. The books were arranged with a kind of love. She had been living here, or coming here, for a long time. This wasn't a hiding place. This was, in whatever way she could manage, a life. Vera Ashby called me back the next morning. She'd been thinking, she said. There was something she'd found in Garrison's papers after he died. Something she'd never entirely understood. She'd filed it away and tried not to think about it. "There's a safety deposit box," she said, "at Cedar Hollow Savings. Garrison's name is on the account, but the access card, it says N. Ashby. The records showed that the box had been accessed twice a year for 30 years. March and October, the same months Mr. Aldous had seen her at the hardware store. The same month she came back to a town she had either escaped or never truly left. The bank manager led me to the box, left me alone with it. I opened it. Inside $11,400 in small bills, organized in rubber, banded stacks. A library card issued to a Claire Worden from Wren Public Library, Wren, Oregon. Population 4,000, near the coast. A town I had to look up. And a photograph. A woman standing in front of a screen door, summer light behind her. She was facing away from the camera. Deliberately, I thought. The way you step aside from a lens when you don't want your face in someone's memory. A yellow dress, one hand resting on the door frame. Some quality in her posture that was not quite tense, not quite relaxed. Someone who had learned to live in between. You couldn't see her face. I sat with the box for a long time. The bank was quiet around me. Outside it had started to rain, a soft, early, spring rain that was more mist than water. The kind Cedar Hollow gets in March when it's trying to decide whether winter is really done. This is where the case divides into two roads. Both of them lead somewhere real. I've spent months on this, and I'm not certain which one I believe. I'm not sure it matters which one you believe, either. But I want you to understand both of them, because they are not equally comfortable to sit with. If you've made it this far, thank you. And I mean that. What I'm about to walk you through is the part I couldn't put down, the part that kept me at my desk long past when I should have slept. If this is your first time here, welcome, subscribe, and hit the bell. The next case out of Cedar Hollow is just as strange, and I promise you won't want to miss the start of it. Now, the first Road Nora Ashby did not die in that fire. The dental records that confirmed her death were prepared by Dr. Caswell, no longer alive, files largely lost. The remains were described in the original report as too compromised for traditional identification. That is a phrase with a lot of room in it. A phrase that, if someone needed to use it a certain way, could accommodate almost anything. The defensive fractures on our Jane Doe's forearms, old injuries, long healed, are consistent with someone who had learned, over time, to protect herself from something specific. The theory Nora Ashby chose to die. She arranged the fire, walked out the back, and became someone who didn't exist. She took nothing except a small brass key and whatever she could carry in memory. She went somewhere. Wren, Oregon, maybe, or somewhere before Wren, and she built a life that couldn't be traced, couldn't be claimed, couldn't be touched. She came back twice a year because there was money in that box, enough to live on in small amounts. And she trusted that Cedar Hollow was small enough and her disguise good enough that no one would look too closely at a quiet woman who bought nails and nodded and thanked the cashier. For 30 years, she was right. The second road, she was never Nora Ashby at all. In 1993, Cedar Hollow's County Records Office suffered significant water damage in the spring floods. The fingerprint database that serves Halcutt County was partially reconstructed from backups, and those reconstructions were, the current records administrator told me somewhat reluctantly, not always verified against originals. Errors exist. The administrator couldn't say how many or where. Under this road, our Jane Doe was someone else entirely. Someone who had run from something and found Nora Ashby's story. An officially dead woman with a clean record, useful as a shell. A borrowed name. A hollow life she could inhabit. Maybe she knew the real Nora in another life. Maybe Nora told her, or left her a way in. The box, the access card, A letter from one woman who needed to disappear to another. Maybe she simply found it herself. There are people who know how to find these things. Under this road, the real Nora Ashby did die in that fire in 1989. She is buried where they said she was buried. And the woman in the mill pond is someone we have never named, who came from somewhere we have never found, who survived by being so carefully, so deliberately, so professionally invisible, until whatever she was running from found her anyway. Both roads end in the same place, a woman in cold water, in the early March thaw, holding a key to something no one could find. I don't know which road is true. I've given you everything I have. You'll have to sit with both of them, same as I do. After the box, I went back to the Hargrove Building one more time. I looked at the books. I looked at the sleeping roll. I looked at the crate and the candle and the camping mug, and I thought someone lived here. Not perfectly, not comfortably, but with intention, with the particular dignity of a person who decided that this was enough and arranged what they could within those walls. I found nothing new. There was nothing new to find. The county came and cleared the building in April. The books went to the Cedar Hollow library donation pile. I kept one, the unfinished novel with the bookmark still in it. I'm not sure I'll ever read past where she stopped. It doesn't seem right to finish it for her. Vera Ashby was quietly devastated. Not because she believed Garrison had done something wrong. She was careful to say she didn't know. She couldn't know. But because she had lived in a marriage for 26 years, and there was, apparently, a room in it she had never been in. He never said a word. She told me, the last time we spoke. Whatever he knew or didn't know, he kept it. She paused. The light in her kitchen was warm and low, afternoon light, the kind that makes ordinary rooms look like they matter. I keep thinking about her coming here, she said, twice a year, walking past where we lived, maybe past this window, maybe. I didn't say that out loud. I just sat with her for a while. The case remains officially open. Unidentified female, cause of death undetermined. Sheriff Hadley categorized it as active, though there has been little to act on. She was buried in Cedar Hollow Municipal Cemetery, Plot 47, in the older section near the willow trees. The stone, which the county provided, reads, "She was here. She was careful. She was kind." Edna Prescott left a handful of yellow wildflowers at the grave in June. She said she didn't know why. She said it felt like the right thing. The music box key was released from evidence in July, when the case hit its first procedural wall. I asked Sheriff Hadley if I could hold on to it. He gave me a look that said he understood, and he said yes. I keep it in the inside pocket of my coat. I don't take it out much. But some nights, when I can't sleep, and the town is quiet and Cedar Hollow is doing whatever Cedar Hollow does in the hours before dawn, I hold it. The way she held it. The worn place at the bow where years of hands have smoothed the metal to something close to a mirror. Whatever lock this key opens, I don't think it's a music box. I think it's something she meant for someone specific to find. I just don't know who. I don't know yet if that someone is me. A few weeks after the case went quiet, I spent an afternoon in the Cedar Hollow archives. Old property records. Routine. And then I found it in a routine inspection report from 1987. The original purchase inspection of the Ashby house on Crabtree Road, listed under Contents Observed at Inspection, 1S100 mahogany music box, antique, carved initials MV. MV, I read that line twice. Then I closed the folder, put it back on the shelf, walked out of the archive into the early spring evening, and stood on the sidewalk for a while, looking at Cedar Hollow, at the way the light was doing something complicated with the willow trees near the cemetery. I didn't tell anyone. I'm not sure what there is to tell or who I would tell it to. An old inventory entry, a coincidence. A set of initials that belongs to thousands of people. I held the key in my coat pocket through the fabric without taking it out. Here's the thing about this case that stayed with me long after I'd done everything I could. She was so careful for so long, and she kept coming back anyway to this town, to this particular pocket of the world that had either defined her or erased her, depending on which road you believe. Maybe you know something about that. The place you keep returning to, even when returning costs something. The thing you keep in your hand, even when you can't explain why. Maybe there's someone in your life who got very good at being unremarkable, who learned to move through rooms without leaving an impression. You may not have noticed. That's not a failure of attention. That's a testament to how hard they worked at it. I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'll let you sleep. I think I made a choice once, before Cedar Hollow, before the morning I woke up in this town with no name for myself and only these instincts. I think I chose to let go of something. I had been holding a door open for a long time, waiting, and eventually I put that down. And in putting it down, I must have put down most of the rest of it too. This case gave me that. Not an answer. Not a name for what I was. Just the memory of choosing. And a question I'm not ready to answer yet. The mill pond is open now. Cole Dempsey was back fishing it within the month. He said the bass are good in April when the water warms. I think he still thinks about her. I think we all will for a while. I'm Muppie Vale. Sleep easy, Cedar Hollow. If this story stayed with you, I'd love for you to subscribe. There are more cases coming out of Cedar Hollow. And the next one, I'll say this much, someone in this town has been leaving the same letter in the same mailbox for 11 years. The address hasn't existed since 2012. Hit the bell if you want to know when it goes up. And if you have a theory about Nora, about which road you think is true, leave it in the comments. I read everyone. Sleep easy.